I have a meeting at 8 o'clock, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you all for joining this morning Bhagavatam reading. So let us offer prayers. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunadhanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrundavaneshwari वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाशास्य देशतारिणी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शुश्रूषो श्रद्धदानस्य वासुदेवा कथारुचि स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्रा पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवनात् शृण्वतां स्वगता कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदयन्तस्थो इह भद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृसतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी तदा रजस्तमो भावा कामलोभादयश्च ये चेतयेतैरणाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगता भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गः सजायते विद्यते हृदयाग्रन्थिश्चिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशया क्षीयन्ते सस्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे Thank you all once again for joining this morning Bhagavatam reading with all your kind prayers and blessings of Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar and Srila Prabhupada and all the Parampara. So we will continue to read our Bhagavatam verses today. Today we'll be reading two verses, 3, 1, 25 and 26. So let me share my screen. Twenty-five. सवासुदेवानुचरं प्रशान्तं बृहस्पते प्राक्तनयं प्रतीतम् अलिङ्ग्यगाधं प्रणयेन भद्रं स्वनाम अप्रचत् भगवत्प्रजानम् Synonyms: Sa, he, Vidura; Vasudeva, Lord Krishna; Anucharam, constant companion; Prashantam, very sober and gentle; Bruhaspate of Bruhaspati, the learned spiritual master of the demigods; Prak, formerly; Tanayam, son or disciple; Pratitam, acknowledged; Alingya, embracing; Gadam, very feelingly. Pranayena, in love. Badram, auspicious. Swanam, his own. Aprachat, asked. Bhagavat, of the personality of Godhead. Prajanam, family. Translation. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna, and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura was older than Uddhava, like a father, and therefore, when the two met, Uddhava bowed down before Vidura, and Vidura embraced him because Uddhava was a younger like a son. Vidura's brother Pandu was Lord Krishna's uncle, and Uddhava was a cousin to Lord Krishna. According to social custom, therefore, Vidura was to be respected by Uddhava on the level of his father. Uddhava was a great scholar in logic, and he was known to be a son or disciple of Brihaspati, the greatly learned priest and spiritual master of the demigods. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew that they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer, but Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus, his inquiry was psychological and not practical. Read next one also. Tachit Purana Purushau Svanabhya Padmanu Vritteya Kila Vatirnau Ashastavurya Kushalam Vidaya Krishnau Kushalam Suragehe. Translation. Please tell me whether the original personalities of Godhead, who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahma, who is born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone and doing well in the house of Surasena. Purport. Lord Krishna and Balarama are not two different personalities of Godhead. God is one without a second, but he expands himself in many forms without their being separate from one another. They are all plenary all they are all plenary expansions. The immediate expansion of Lord Krishna is Baladeva, and Brahma, born from the lotus flower from Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, is an expansion of Baladeva. This indicates that Krishna and Baladeva are not subjected to the regulations of the universe. On the contrary, the whole universe is under their subjugation. They appeared at the request of Brahma to liberate the burden of the world, and they relieved the world by many superhuman activities so that everyone became happy and prosperous. Without the grace of the Lord, no one can become happy and prosperous because the happiness of the family of the Lord's devotees depends on the happiness of the Lord. Vidura first of all inquired about the well being of the Lord. So very nice verses. So this is the place where after Vidura going all the places of pilgrimage, so he came to Prabhash Kshetra and then he met Uddhava here, right? So if we go to the beginning of the context is, so in the second chapter, second canto, last chapter, the Sukadeva sages were asking Sukadeva Goswami, right, about where did because in the first canto there was this topic came, so about the Vidura leaving the palace and all, right? And again the that question comes back again. So in the second canto, because a lot of other things happened in between, and discussion happened between the sages and the Sutta Goswami, and then they asked again Sutta Goswami about the same topic. So again, he says that the same questions have been asked by Maharaj Parikshit to Sukadeva Goswami. That's how the chapter starts, right? So the third canto, first chapter starts. First two verses, it talks about how Vidura, dear Vidura was to Krishna, and then but still he left the palace, right? So and then as soon as the Duryodhana said very harsh words, so he just left the bow and arrow at the entrance of that palace, and then he left the palace. So he was very, very renounced. Then the questions were, okay, where did Maharaj Vidura Muni or Vidura, the personality I met Maitreya Muni, right? Where did they meet and what discussion took place between them? So the same question that the sages asked to Suta Goswami as well, right? So and then that's how the chapter starts, and then again from the verse 6 to 16 that we had, the Sukadeva Goswami explains the circumstances that led Vidura leaving the palace, right? So he gives a little bit more details here. So how he, I mean, the discussion what Vidura said to Dhritarashtra, and how Duryodhana, I mean, kind of treats very badly or humiliates Vidura in a way that the discussion is, I mean, the talk is very bad. So he leaves the palace, right? And then the last section, that 17 to 24, we had how Vidura traveled to many holy places. So then had Prabhas Kshetra when he came to know that Lord ended his pastimes and all his relatives left this planet as well, right? So, but then, I mean, it doesn't say much about there, but I mean, we can understand how difficult it would have been to Vidura. So to know all his relatives, including the Lord, left this planet, right? So it would have been very I mean very troublesome to the heart. I mean for a people, I mean like for a normal person it is going to be very too much actually, right? So then from there but then from there what he doesn't, I think, I mean we had the discussion, Radhika Mohan was asking about why the Lord didn't travel to upwards, he traveled south, right? So then he went to I mean, the places like Surat and the western parts of India, and then from there again he traveled towards the eastern side. So that is where he met Uddhava on the banks of the river Yamuna. So by this time, actually we know that from the earlier verses at Prabhat Kshetra, he came to know that the Lord and his all the associates ended their pastimes on this planet Earth, right? But then again, if you see this verse, as if he doesn't know, he's asking that question again, right? So actually, if we read this next many verses, he asked about each and every individual by name, so about how are they doing, right? So I mean, I mean, he knows that the Lord left the planet, but then for that actually Jiva Goswami quote Prabhupada gives in this purport here. So in the verse 25. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew that they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer, but Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus, his inquiry was psychological, not practical. So it's not very easy to digest such a big news, right? So I mean, of course, he wanted to know more about the Lord's activities as well. So I mean, if we see the next many verses, actually up to I think 41 or so on this chapter, he asks about, now we are in 26, right? 25, 26. This is where he started asking about the Lord. So that's how he starts initially inquiring about the Lord, and then he talks about all his associates. So and at the end, 41 verse, he talks about Dhritarashtra. He simply, I mean, he remembers, but he doesn't ask about his well-being. He says, I mean, if I read this translation, "O gentle one, I simply lament for him, Dhritarashtra, who rebelled against his brother after death. That by him I was driven out of my own house, although I am a sincere well-wisher, because he accepted the line of action adopted by his own sons." So he was simply lamenting about Dhritarashtra's situation. So he has not met Dhritarashtra, right? So he was just met Vidura, the Uddhava now, and after that he is going to meet Maitreya, and then hears the whole thing for next few cantos. Actually, that the discussion happened between them. We are going to hear, and then after that he goes to the path that we read earlier. So, but he doesn't even ask about Duryodhana and his brothers in all these verses. He asks so many other people, but he doesn't ask about Duryodhana and his brothers. So again, coming back to this verse 26, right? So he says Purana Purusha. So he doesn't use, I mean, if we observe, he doesn't use the direct word Krishna and Balarama in the in the Sanskrit as well, right? So, but it's very clear. I mean, whom he is asking, whom he is referring. So, I mean, it's very clear that it's Krishna and Balarama, Purana Purusha, I mean, it's two personalities. And Prabhupada says that they are not different, they're the same personalities, right? Somebody was asking who was God before Krishna became God, right? When I was having some discussion with one of my relative, so she was asking who was God before Krishna became God. Krishna took birth, I mean, say 5,000 years ago. So he became God after some time, right? So then who was God? I mean, it's not that it is always God. Krishna was God. Krishna is God. Krishna will be God. I mean, forever it is eternal. That position is taken, so nobody else can become God, right? So I mean, that's why it's Purana Purusha. I mean, it's not even, he's not going to be. It's not that he's becoming God. He's always God. So then Prabhupada explains about how the Balarama is the first expansion of Krishna in the purport. So first of all, I mean, we know there are two kinds of expansions. One is, of course, Prakasha. Krishna himself expands to enjoy the pastimes. For example, he expanded 16,108, right, forms to be with the queens, or in the Vrindavan pastimes to enjoy with the gopis. Those are the direct expansion. There is no difference of look and look of Krishna also. He always looks same, right? But if we see there is other expansions of, like, for example, Balarama or Vishnu expansions or the other avatars, they look different. So the quality wise, they're Vishnu Tattvas, but the I mean, from the appearance wise, they're different. For example, Narsimhadev, right? So it completely different. So those are the Vilas expansions and the Prakash expansion. The first Vilas expansion is Lord Balaram. So Lord Balaram, first Vilas expansion. So then from there, so the Chaturvyuha forms comes, right? So Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So there are, I mean, of course, I think I don't remember where we read that in the second canto, or it is going to come in third canto. So how there is the primary first Chaturvyuha expansions. Again from the Sankarshana, again there is another Chaturvyuha expansion comes. Again the Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha comes, right? So again Mahasankarshana. From this Mahasankarshana, the Mahavishnu comes, right? So from there, from the Mahavishnu, of course, the whole creation happens in this world. So then the Garbhodak Sai Vishnu and Kshirodak Sai Vishnu comes from there, right? And then the other incarnations, whatever appears in this material world, it comes through the Kshirodak Sai Vishnu again, right? But then if you see, there is no difference between the Krishna and Balaram, except their appearance, right? The color is different. That's what we just generally hear. I mean, the Krishna is a dark, blackish, and Balaram is very fair color. So there is no other difference. That's why Prabhupada says God, I mean, they're one and the same, right? So, but if you see the other expansions, they're also same, but they, like for example, Narayana and all, they have 4 hands, but Krishna has only 2 hands. So then the other part, so I was just thinking about what is the protection, right? So second part of the verse, it says, so we have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone. So what is this prosperity? I mean, what is the prosperity the Lord increased? So I was thinking about it. So then I was looking at, I mean, multiple places what Prabhupada talked about the prosperity, right? So, I mean, of course, we know this famous verse, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Guru Brahmanayitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha, right? So, I mean, what is the prosperity? The prosperity, I mean, multiple places, Prabhupada says, even the material prosperity, right? So, I mean, satisfaction of the mind is one of the biggest prosperity, right? People can have any amount of wealth. So, if they're not materially satisfied, what is the prosperity to do with it, right? So, I mean, Prabhupada was having one of the room conversation. So, he was telling the other person, so the prosperity is the satisfaction of the mind, right? So Krishna taught so many lessons. Of course, the Bhagavad Gita itself Krishna has given, right? So and also he did. Paritrana sadhuna meet vinashaya cha dushkritam. All the dushkrutis, so all the kings, bad kings of the world. So he kind of taken out from the planet, right? He established dharma. So by following the dharma, by satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, so all the other satisfaction comes, right? That's how he says in the purport of this verse, right? Because the happiness of the family of the Lord, they appeared at the request of Brahma to liberate the burden on the world, and they relieved the world by many superhuman activities so that everyone become happy and prosperous. So that is the and then other thing, prosperity. We were Prabhupada has very strong conviction. So what is this prosperity, right? How the Europeans and the even the Mughals came to India. So when India was not having any industries for those days, right? Of course, I mean, of course, other parts of the world also doesn't have the industries, but India was very prosperous, right? People all over the world knows the prosperity of India. I mean, the satisfaction of the people and the culture of India. That is the prosperity. And I mean, Prabhupada was having very strong conviction, right, about the prosperity. Was in 1958, I was reading in Leela Amrita. So in 1958, Prabhupada, let me share this screen again here. So let me read this. Although in Bombay, Abhay was practically homeless in August of 1958, he boldly wrote the Prime Minister expressing his conviction that India's spiritual culture must not only be revived at home, but also be distributed into the West. He reminded Pandit Nehru that from the ancient Greece down to the atomic age of the Western world had seen only materialism and had therefore never known peace. If Nehru were to continue following the path of materialism, the only results would be strife and war. Therefore, India may not waste her time in imitating the Western way of life. You have admitted it that the position of the Indian culture is of high order, but at the same time, you want to bring in material prosperity by scientific advancement of knowledge. But what is the scientific knowledge? What is that scientific knowledge? Spiritualism is also advanced scientific knowledge. Material advancement of scientific knowledge cannot give even material prosperity to the people in general. It's a very bold statement. Right? He's writing to Nehru 1958. So, do you think that the horseless carriage or the telephonic or radio communication or any other such ephemeral facilities of life can bring in material prosperity? No, it cannot. Material prosperity means the people must have sufficient to eat or to maintain but the body very strongly. Do you think that your different plans have brought in material prosperity or that modern Western civilization can bring in that prosperity? Even they are given that facility, the unrest will continue to go on till there is spiritual satisfaction of life. That is the secret of peace. So Prabhupada is very, very clear, right? So what is the prosperity that even the material prosperities, we are not, I mean, he's not just talking about the spiritual prosperity. So even the material prosperity doesn't come by the industrialization, right? So I mean, there were industries. I think there was one more morning walk I was hearing. So I don't know here or somewhere. Yeah, so here Prabhupada is saying in the West, we weren't so materially prosperous until we started industrialism. The prosperity was not there until we started our big factories. So Prabhupada is saying, no, no, just like in India, there was no industry at all. Until the British period, there was no industry. Not a single. Even in Muhammadan period, there was no industry and they were happy. There was no industry. The Muhammadans also did not know how to start industry. It is Western imported, larger scale industry. Cottage industry was there. Such a high standard of living that was not available to as many people as there is now. But Prabhupada is saying, what is that higher standard? When there was no industry in India, there was full of gold, jewelries, and now there is plastic. Then this discussion goes on the TV and all. Why do we need TV? I mean, how can one enjoy with TV? Then somebody says that we can work very hard and watch TV and forget everything what we did, right? Then Prabhupada is, why do we need to work hard? So, I mean, of course, people, I mean, the kind of I mean, the modern system that we developed in a way that one cannot live the kind of facilities that one has today, right? Of course, we cannot be without car. We cannot be without, I mean, some of the big facilities, right? Air conditioning, of course, heating. So all these are, I mean, some of them are maybe useful to get to that. But with it all having, if somebody is not having satisfaction of the mind, so what is the use of that prosperity one has it? Right? So that's what I mean. We generally learn from the Krishna consciousness. I mean, the teachings of Prabhupada. So, be anybody else want to add anything? We have 5 minutes, 4 minutes. I need to drop also 8 o'clock. I have a meeting. So please share something or correct.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Uh, Wonderful class. It was a nice, what do you say, dose for the entire week. The way you were comparing modern civilization versus the spiritual satisfaction, and you rightly said, like there can be no satisfaction without, we feeling, no matter how much amount of wealth we have, it doesn't satisfy unless there is spiritual satisfaction. And also you went into the, like how the avatars descend, and what are the chatur, like the four expansions, and then the second four expansions. Very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Present.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Very
Please,
nice class, Prabhu. Prabhu, you are talking about Vidura. When he was inquiring about other relatives to Uddhava, he didn't ask about Duryodhana and his associates. So it looks very significant, Prabhu. But in our in our mundane life, like in material relationship, we there may be chances for us to be disturbed with someone's actions and behavior, even as a just as a courtesy, when we meet someone who is a common person. So we ask how everyone is doing, I know. But in this case, like Vidra is intentionally not asking. How to understand this, Prabhu? Any insight on that part?
So, I mean, I don't know, Prabhu. I was thinking because he knew well, right? All of them are left this planet,
Mm.
right? So, I mean, he knew because he already came to know, right? Because this happened when? After a long time, right? Krishna leaves this planet, 36 or so years after this battlefield, right? So,
Right.
I mean, Duryodhana and all left long, much before, he came to know about Lord left this planet. Okay, I don't know when he will when he comes to know about that, but I think primarily he comes to know about the Yadus, right? Sadhus and all left the planet at that time, just before Vidra meets Uddhava and when Prabhas Kshetra. So Duryodhana's leaving, I don't know if he already came to know about it much earlier. I'm not sure. Okay, but then but he doesn't ask even about Dhritarashtra is there, but Dhritarashtra also he simply laments, right? So this person did not even listen my good instructions, right? But then he doesn't ask about Duryodhana. I don't know. I mean, there is no point in asking about an envious person, the well-being of him, because I'm sure that he would know it by then, Prabhu. That is one thing I was thinking. The other thing, even if he doesn't know that, because he knows that Yudhishthira Maharaj is the king, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
Duryodhana is already left left this or much before, because if we remember, I think he left the palace just before the war begins, right? That is when he gives the instructions to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra doesn't take it, and Duryodhana asks him to get out of the palace and all, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
immediately after that, the war happens, right? And then because this is happening after long time, so many years after that, the Lord leaving the planet. So I don't know. Maybe he would have asked. Because I understand what you are saying from the indifference or the kind of equanimity perspective, Prabhu. But then, because this happened after a long time, so I'm sure he knows that Duryodhana is no more. He will because it's not it's happened like yesterday, right? We won't ask about 50 years back, 30 years back situation to somebody whom you are meeting. So because this is very difficult situation for Vidura to understand that the Lord just left, right?
Right. Right.
So that is where I was thinking, Prabhu. But other side also, if we go and see, the even if he is there, so why does he need to care about the some envious person, right? He's very
Mm.
envious. It's not that he is like a neutral person, right? So doesn't need to ask about the well-being of that person because he knows that he is not well anyway.
Right.
Anyway,
Yes.
that's.
Hare
But
Prabhuji.
my first thing is I
Wonderful.
was thinking, yeah.
Sorry, interrupting both of you. I'm so sorry. Uh, Wonderful question from Sachisuta Prabhu. And what I was thinking was, this is Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is all the glories of the Lord and his devotees. And Vidura is already renounced. So he's not probably thinking about, non-devotees. He's only thinking about devotees and their activities. That's what I was thinking, Prabhuji.
Mm. That makes sense, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Anyone has final comment? Otherwise, we'll end. Okay. Thank you all so much. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and then we'll continue it tomorrow. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. 15 Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vancha kalpadavishya.